Central Asia is an ancient land which inspired numerous legends and epics over the years. This is the place where the most mysterious secrets of the East are hidden. Many well-known talented people infused Central Asian countries with their beautiful creations. Our story is about its greatness and mysteriousness. Sogdiana. The first mentioning of Sogd or Sogdiana, a territorial entity and the Central Asian state, was in the sacred text Avesta. Geographically, Sogdia was formed as an area between the rivers Oxus and Yaksat, modern Amudarya and Sirdarya. Sogdiana was situated to the north of Bactria and included significant shares of the territories located in present-day Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. The capital and the most significant city in Sogdia was Marakanda, Samarkand.
Для Персии Согд всегда был богатой сатрапией, потому что его население вносило...
Sogdia was a rich satrapy of Persia, therefore its population paid substantial taxes in silver, sent precious jewels and supplied military contingents to join the army. In 329-328, the population of Sogdia, led by its Petermen, rebelled against the army of Alexander the Great, which marked the beginning of the partisan war. After conquering this territory, Alexander united Sogdia and Bactria in one satrapy, which later became the core of the Greco-Bactrian kingdom, founded by Diodotus, which existed till the 2nd century BC.
И в начале VIII века власть в Согде захватили пришедшие арабы.
Seleucus' son, Antiochus, who was half Sogdian, his mother Aparna was Peterman's daughter, became his co-ruler in the east. Under the rule of the Seleucids, the ancient country, ruined by war and rebellions, began to revive. There is no definite information in historical sources about the life in Marakanda of that time, but it is known that there was a growth in economic activities in Sogdia, Bactria and Margiana. New cities were built, the old ones were fortified, it was time of development of handicrafts and trade, expansion of irrigation systems and mints.
Мне кажется, что вот у иранцев, у арисев, шах назывался шахен-шахом.
In my opinion, Iranians called the Shah Shahan-Shah, King of Kings. Sogd was the state. Spitamen was its king when Alexander the Great had arrived. Vakshan-Par was the king of Sogdiana, that is, Oxyatus. But all these kings submitted to Shahanshah of Achaemenid. That's why Sogd was the kingdom. But in ancient times it was the part of the Bactrian state. Originating in Zoroaster period during the Bronze Age, there was a state called the Kionite state. It included territories of Bactria, Merv, meaning that Margush, Khwarezm, Pakistan, modern Afghanistan and eastern Turkestan.
И Пакистан, вот современный Афганистан, и Восточный Туркестан, все это входили тогда.
They loved their wine as much as their horses loved lucerne. Persian sources about Sogdiana. When we talk about the densely populated oasis irrigated by the waters of the river Zarafshan, which was known as the Polytimus to the ancient Greeks, we can assume that there was a significant development of an artificial irrigation during ancient era. Peasants who lived in Marakanda and Zarafshan Valley at that time were cultivating wheat, rice, millet, lucerne, cotton, planted gardens and vineyards. Some sources claim that residents of Fergana and neighboring countries, Sogdia and Bactria, made wine. Rich landowners were aging wine in cellars for several decades. residents of Sogdiana were engaged in agricultural as well as in pastoral activities. Horse breeding was exceedingly popular. Thoroughbred horses from Sogdiana were known from the Mediterranean Sea to the Pacific Ocean. In ancient time, the country developed active trade with the East and the West. The famous Silk Road, which crossed the Asian continent, passed through the cities of Sogdiana. Marakanda, Samarkand, was situated at the main crossroads of the most important caravan routes from India, Byzantium, China, Tibet, Iran, Siberia, and Scythia. There was a mutual exchange and influence of values and customs between peoples of Sogdia and nations from the East and West. It is proven that the Chinese, for instance, adopted cultures like lucerne, grape, pomegranate, walnut, and many vegetables from the Central Asian people. China also adopted cotton cultivating from the residents of the Amudarya, Zerafshan, and Sirdarya river valleys. The Chinese were exporting horses from the Fergana Valley, which they referred to as heavenly for their beauty, endurance, and speed. In turn, the population of Sogdiana adopted silkworm breeding, paper production, gold and silver jewelry making, and the art of making weapons. During the struggles between the Sogdians and foreigners in the last centuries BC, the historical map of Central Asia frequently changed its shape. The borders were moved, large state formations like Greco-Bactrian Kingdom and others were emerging and vanishing. The Sogdians were known as skillful farmers and artisans, good merchants, talented musicians and dancers. While speaking about the Sogdians, historian Vasily Bartold pointed out that their cultural activity along the caravan routes in Central Asia matches with that of the Phoenicians along the Mediterranean coast. It's really difficult to overestimate the role of the Sogdians at that time. They practically controlled the trade on the eastern part of the Silk Road from Merv to the river Huanghe. Overcoming all artificial and intentional obstacles impeded by the Shahs of Iran, the Sogdian merchants were reaching to the west as well. Because they were Phoenicians in Central Asia, trade routes were everywhere as far as Mongolia. In the Sogdian period, during the Turks' conquests period in Central Asia, the Sakas were already using Sogdian language. Everything I have heard about Marakanda is true, except that it's more beautiful than I ever imagined. Alexander the Great. According to the Byzantine historian Menander, Sogdian envoys used old steppe roads bypassing Iran along the northern coast of the Caspian Sea and made direct connection with Byzantium. The Sogdian legation had arrived in Constantinople. In turn, the Byzantine emperor sent his envoy to Central Asia in 568. This is how the Sogdians managed to establish strong trade, diplomatic and cultural relations with Byzantium, which lasted for many years. Rich and original Sogdian culture could be measured by their writing. The usual practice was to write from right to left, but frequently they were using vertical writing. At that time, they wrote in black ink on leather, sticks, tabulas, crocks, and rarely on paper. The earlier Sogdian texts known to us are the so-called old letters which were found by Orelstein's expedition in 1906-1908 on the ruins of the watchtower to the west from Dunhuang. The documents are dated beginning of the 4th century AD. In 2 letters dictated to the copyist by Sogdian girl Mevancha, Kitty or Little Tiger, and addressed to her mother living in Samarkand, she informed her about disturbed days which at that time worried Sogdians, who lived in trading colonies of East Turkestan. These disturbances were connected with the impact of Hans, about trading affairs, about her private life. So, for example, the girl complained of her sad destiny. Her trustee Nani Dat wished to marry her, but she didn't agree. But after some years, all had changed. From another letter we learn that the girl became wife of Nani Dat, that she was happy in marriage and cares for her beloved husband.
Старые согдийские письма, они были найдены выдающимся английским археологом Аурелом Стейном. Он проводил исследования в Восточном Туркестане.
All Sogdian letters, they were discovered by the prominent English archaeologist Stein. He carried out his research in eastern Turkestan along the Great Wall of China. In one of the towers he discovered a basket. The basket was full of letters. Scientists began to study them, although there are still disputes concerning the dating of these letters. Some scientists consider that they were written in the 4th century, others in the 2nd century. Deciphering the Sogdian script enabled scientists to finally read these letters. The content of these letters is truly great.
Мы предпочитаем термин дешифровка, а не расшифровка. Тогда стало возможным читать эти письма. И они замечательны по содержанию.
I would rather marry a dog or even a pig than become a wife of Nani Dat. From Mevancha's letter. In the 1st century AD, Sogdiana and Bactria joined the powerful slave state known as the Great Kushan's Power. The Kushan Period, 1st 4th centuries AD, was the period of significant development for Central Asia. It was the period of revival of urban life and strengthening of trade relations of the Sogdian cities, including Samarkand, with China and India. Silk, jade, iron, nickel, lacquer and leather goods were imported from Eastern Asia, while exported goods from Central Asia included glasses, precious stones and jewelry. The trade with India usually involved exchanging glass products and other Central Asian goods for spices, fragrances, paper and wool fabrics. The Kushan Empire, which went into deep decline in the 3rd and 4th centuries, lost to advancing nomadic warrior tribes commonly known as the Hephthalites. But in the 4th century, the Hephthalites were pushed away by the tribes which later formed the Turkic Khaganate. Despite all the unrest caused by the change of statehood and dynasties, Samarkand continued to play the significant role in economic, political and cultural life in Central Asia and the whole East. The ancient Sogdian state, with its capital in Samarkand, was formed in 8th-7th centuries BC. In its history, there were many legends and stories about the naming of the city. The most common versions are associated with the definition of the word Samaria as place of gathering, meeting, or gathering of traders. One of the legends relates the city's name to the mythical ruler Samar. The book of the Sugar Loaf concerning the history of Samarkand, or simply the Kandiyar, tells about the ruler who, after a long search, has found a wonderful place. He was most pleased with the water and the air. He ordered to dig a well and take out all the soil. This good soil was all around, attracting many people, and so the city emerged. The name Marakanda is Greek interpretation of the name Samarkand. Abu Rayhan al-Biruni, an encyclopedist of the Orient, mentions the Turkic version of the city's name, Semiskent, prosperous, rich city.
согдийцы первоначально жили на территории Бактрии. В древнейшем гимне о Весте Михр-Яшти, где перечислены географические области, населенные ариями.
Originally, the Sogdians lived in the territory of Bactria. The ancient hymn of Avesta mentions all geographical regions inhabited by the Aryans like Sogdiana, Sogd, Ishharta, Dugur and Khoresm. However, there is no reference to Bactria whatsoever. At the same time, Sogdian toponyms are still widely spread on the left bank Bactria as well as on the right bank. Then Sogdians slowly migrated to the territory of modern Kashkadarya region. Right now we are tracking the routes of that migration. Then they went to Zarafshan Valley and settled in central Uzbekistan. Although archaeologists and historians speak about eastern, southern, western Sogd, but there is only one Sogd. There is one notion, Sogd. The Sogdians played a significant role in the civilizations of the East and the West.
Такого нет в источниках. Есть одно понятие – Согд. И согдийцы сыграли выдающуюся роль в цивилизации Востока. Вообще, и Востока и Запада.
I, Ahura Mazda, created Gava, the abode of Sogdians, as the second of the best places and countries. Avesta, geographical poem. In the era of Eastern Hellenism, Samarkand rose from the ruins like a phoenix and began to flourish again. Situated in the center of the Central Asian interfluve, it develops as a hotbed of Eurasian trade relations. Handicrafts produced there, elegant stem glasses, thin-shelled cups and bowls covered with red and black lacquer, remind us of the Greek and Roman lacquered vessels. Fine terracotta figurines share features with Eastern Hellenistic items. City fortresses and prospering settlements emerge around Samarkand. The samples of the Sogdian written language created during this time were preserved on coins and ceramic items. In 4th-5th centuries AD, which were called the Great Migration Era, waves of nomads headed to Central Asia. The Huns, Kedarites, Chionites and Hephthalites were approaching these lands.
В середине VI века создается могучий тюркский каганат.
The Great Turkic Khaganate was forming starting from the middle of the 6th century. It was a nomad empire which stretched from China to southern Russian steppes and also included Sogdia. It was the time of rise in trade activity of the Sogdian merchants. They reached the most remote countries, took control over many important parts of land roads of the Great Silk Roads, established their trade colonies near the Great Wall of China, founded cities with temples in eastern Turkestan, set out their caravans on dangerous and hard mountain paths of Karakorum in Pakistan and northern India. Here, on the passes near Shatial and Chilas bridges, the Sogdians established trading posts for goods exchanged with Indian merchants. Supported by the Turkic Khagans, who were interested in sale of the silk which was received as a tribute from China, they paved the steppe routes with cities and caravanserais. And when the Shah of the Sassanid Iran rejected the proposal of the Sogdian legation, headed by the envoy Mania, to jointly control southern routes of the Great Silk Road and Bern presented to him silk on the capital square as a sign of protest, the Khagans legation took the new route to the north, to Khoresm, around the Caspian Sea. In 5th-7th centuries, intensive Sogdian colonization in the rivers Talas, Argu country according to Turkic sources, Chu and Joly valleys, led to creation of dozens of cities and fortified settlements. The 7th-8th centuries were marked by the great influx of the Sogdians to Semirechye, especially to the Chu Valley. Some parts of these settlements were uncovered, particularly during the research of the leading Kazakhstani archaeologist Karl Baypakov. There were large cities, as big as the most cities of the early medieval period in Central Asia. In the Chu Valley alone, there were no less than 18 large cities and a great number of smaller settlements founded by the Sogdians, Turks, Syrians, Persians.
На территории этого государства в разных городах найдены очень много ценные вещи, сделанные из дорогих металлов, сделанные из дорогих камней, и иностранные предметы.
Many valuable items made of precious metals and jewels and also some foreign objects were found on the territory of this state in different cities. It proves that not only cattle breeding, but manufacturing had also been developed in this country as well as domestic and international trade. Moreover, trade routes from west to east, from east to west, or from north to south and from south to north were passing through this country. So, in short, for many centuries, this state was located on the crossroads of the Great Silk Road. Local residents developed their own culture and appreciated the influence of other cultures, thereby enriching their national culture, and shared it with other nations.
Но они воспринимали влияние других культур, обогащали собственную культуру, но и передавали свои культуры другим народам.
The country, which stretches from the city of Suyab to Kushan Principality, is called Sogd. Its population shares the same name. Suan Zan. The Sogdians were highly skilled farmers and artisans who actively participated in the caravan trade along the Silk Road. They also had a great influence on the neighboring Turkic nations. First on the remaining two Geshas, Argu and Tursi tribes, and then on Karluks. This influence mainly affected those Turks who switched to a sedentary lifestyle, having settled in rural areas and even in the cities. In a close contact with these tribes, the Sogdians were sharing their rich cultural heritage in various fields of activity.
Однако, воздействуя на тюрков, согдийцы, в свою очередь, попадали под их встречу.
For instance, in Mahmud Kashgari's time, 11th century, those who lived in the cities in Semirechye, in particular Balasagun residents, adopted clothes and customs of the Turks, speaking both Sogdian and Turkic, and there were no one who spoke only Sogdian. Same with inhabitants of Taraz and Isfajab. It follows that from the second half of the 11th century, the Sogdians of the Semirechye were bilingual and that they gradually blended in the Turkic ethnic environment. The integration of Central Asia into the Turkic Khaganate had some positives. The Turkic rulers ensured peace, much needed for these lands, and at the same time didn't interfere much into internal affairs of the conquered nations. Basically, the cities of Sogd safeguarded their independence, as well as cities of Fergana. The only thing they had to do was paying tribute to Beks and Khans. The Great Silk Road worked effectively. A huge amount of silk, velvet and other fabrics, vitrics, ornaments, brocade and leather goods was transported from China to Byzantium and back, some of it settling in Bukhara, Samarkand, Tashkent, Merv, Kashgar, Suyab, Kucha and Turfan. The eastern gates of the city of Samarkand were called the Chinese gates. Samarkand, the capital of Sogdiana, became one of the most prosperous cities in Central Asia.